The mind of Joseph Stalin is not a story of sudden cruelty. It is a story of something colder. It is the story of how a human being learns to stop seeing other humans as people and begins to see them as obstacles, tools, or threats. To understand Stalin, you must begin with fear, not the fear he created, but the fear he learned to live inside. He was born in 1878 in a small Georgian town into a world of violence, instability, and silence. His father drank. His home was filled with beatings. His body carried scars from childhood illness and injury. His face, later carved into monuments, once reflected something closer to fragility than power. Psychology tells us that early environments shape how the brain learns to interpret safety, trust, and threat. A child raised in unpredictability does not learn how to connect. He learns how to survive. Stalin learned to disappear emotionally before he learned how to dominate politically. As a young man, he entered a religious seminary, a place of rigid hierarchy, constant surveillance, and strict punishment. The structure did not soften him, it trained him. Here he learned how systems work, how authority speaks, how power hides behind rules, doctrine, and moral language. He left faith behind, but he never left the structure of belief. He simply replaced God with ideology. Revolution did not come to him as hope, it came as a weapon. In underground politics, he discovered something that would define his psychology. Secrecy creates control, silence creates safety, and fear, when properly applied, creates loyalty. While others in the movement spoke passionately about justice and freedom, Stalin worked in shadows. He organized robberies, ran networks, erased enemies quietly. His power did not grow through speeches. It grew through information. Modern psychology would recognize this pattern. A personality oriented toward dominance through control rather than connection, toward influence through threat rather than trust. When the revolution succeeded, the struggle changed form. The enemy was no longer the empire. It was anyone who might challenge the center of power, and Stalin placed himself at that center. He did not rule like a king. He ruled like a system. He turned government into a psychological environment where no one knew who was watching, who was listening, or who would vanish next. This was not just political repression, it was emotional conditioning on a national scale. When fear becomes constant, the brain changes. People stop thinking long-term. They stop forming trust. They stop resisting. Survival becomes the only goal. This is what made his power so durable. But behind the machinery of the state was a man who trusted almost no one. Stalin read reports obsessively. He annotated files late into the night. He memorized names, connections, patterns of loyalty and hesitation. His world was not built of relationships. It was built of threat maps. Psychologically, this reflects a mind locked into permanent vigilance, a state where the boundary between danger and imagination begins to dissolve. Paranoia, in its clinical form, is not simply fear. It is the belief that intention exists everywhere, that nothing is random, that every silence hides a plot. Stalin governed as if reality itself were conspiring against him. The purges were not just acts of political strategy. They were expressions of a deeper psychological logic. Eliminate uncertainty by eliminating people. Friends, generals, doctors, poets, comrades from the revolution, anyone who became too visible, too respected, too independent. Power for Stalin was not about being followed, it was about being unchallengeable. And yet, inside this structure of absolute control, something deeply human remained: insecurity. He avoided public appearances. He distrusted crowds. He isolated himself physically and emotionally. His closest circle lived under constant tension, performing loyalty like actors on a stage where forgetting a line could mean death. Psychologically, this reveals one of the central paradoxes of extreme authoritarian personalities. The more control they gain, the more threatened they feel, because power built on fear can never generate trust. During the Second World War, Stalin became a symbol of national survival. But even in victory, the internal war did not end. The surveillance continued. The arrests continued. The silence deepened. Entire populations learned to measure their words, their faces, even their thoughts. This is not just history. This is social psychology at scale. A society under constant threat begins to internalize the authority watching it. People become their own guards, their own censors, their own prison walls. Stalin did not only rule the state, he reshaped the psychological climate of millions of minds. Near the end of his life, he lived surrounded by guards, files, and locked doors. He trusted almost no one to touch his food, his medicine, or his body. When he finally collapsed, no one entered the room for hours. Not because they did not hear him, but because they were afraid to act without permission. That may be the most revealing detail of all. The system he built had outlived his voice, his presence, even his consciousness. The psychology of Stalin is not only the psychology of a man, it is the psychology of what happens when power is stripped of empathy, when control replaces connection, and when fear becomes the primary language between human beings. Because in the end, the most dangerous transformation is not turning people into enemies. It is turning people into objects. And the most haunting legacy of Stalin's mind is not found in monuments or borders or documents. It is found in the quiet understanding that a system built on fear does not need its creator to survive. It only needs people who are too afraid to stop it.